"But where will we go?" Dad asked. "That's for you to figure out," I replied. "I've already had my attorney prepare formal eviction notices for both of you. You have 30 days. I never expected my own blood to betray me so callously. It was a crisp autumn morning in Burlington when my younger brother Marcus called me over to our family estate, the sprawling Victorian home our parents had lived in for decades. The golden New England foliage framed the house, where I'd spent countless hours maintaining the aging infrastructure while working as an architectural restoration specialist. When I arrived, Marcus was standing in the grand foyer, his finance executive smugness radiating as he adjusted his designer watch. "Eliza," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction, "I have some news that might interest you." The way he stood there, confident, poised like he'd already won, sent a chill down my spine. "Mom and Dad signed over the estate to me yesterday," he announced, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "The paperwork's all done. As of now, this place is mine." My stomach dropped. This century-old home held every significant memory of my 42 years. Holiday gatherings in the ornate dining room, summer evenings on the wraparound porch, the quiet moments helping Dad with his model ships in the study. And now, my brother, who'd moved to Boston a decade ago and rarely visited, was claiming ownership. I looked toward our parents, who had entered silently from the kitchen. Mom, at 73, couldn't meet my eyes, finding sudden interest in her gardening-worn hands. Dad, approaching 80 and increasingly frail, just exhaled heavily. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been the one taking care of this place. I've repaired the roof, updated the plumbing, restored the original woodwork." Mom finally spoke, her voice tired. "He's family, Eliza." "And what am I?" I demanded, my professional composure cracking. Marcus chuckled, leaning against the antique mahogany staircase railing I had painstakingly restored last spring. "You should have secured your position years ago. At your age, it's almost embarrassing you never got your own place." His words stung. I had sacrificed my own housing opportunities to care for our aging parents and preserve our family home. I'd poured my expertise into this house, treating it with the same reverence I gave to the historical buildings I restored for a living. "You need to start packing," Marcus continued. "I have plans for this place." I looked at him, then at our parents, feeling the weight of their betrayal pressing down on me. Without another word, I walked out, got into my weathered Subaru, and drove straight to the office of Josephine Winters, the family attorney who had handled our grandfather's estate. Ms. Winters' office was housed in a converted mill building downtown, overlooking the river. When I explained the situation, she didn't seem surprised. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, a knowing look crossing her face. "So your parents gave the Burlington estate to Marcus," she stated, tapping her pen rhythmically on her leather desk pad. I nodded, and she continued. "And they assumed they had the legal right to do that?" Another nod from me. Her lips curved into a smile that held secrets. "Actually," she said, "that house was never theirs to give away." Time seemed to slow as her words sank in. "What are you talking about?" Ms. Winters reached into her filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. She placed it between us and began flipping through documents yellowed with age. "Here," she said, pointing to a particular page. "Your grandfather, Theodore, left the property explicitly to you in his will. The house has legally been yours since his passing 15 years ago. Your parents were granted lifetime residence rights, but they never held ownership and thus had no authority to transfer the property to anyone." I stared at the document, my hands trembling slightly as I traced my grandfather's signature. Old Theodore, who had always appreciated my love for historical preservation, who had quietly taught me the importance of honoring our roots. He had ensured the family legacy would pass to me. "So what now?" I asked. Ms. Winters' eyes held a spark of determination. "Now we set things right." Instead of returning home that night, I stayed at my colleague Diane's downtown apartment. The next morning, Ms. Winters filed an immediate injunction preventing Marcus from making any alterations to the property or attempting to transfer ownership. By afternoon, my phone was buzzing constantly. I ignored the first several calls from Marcus until finally answering. "What the hell have you done?" he hissed, his composure shattered. "I protected what's mine," I replied evenly. "That's impossible," he sputtered. "Mom and Dad gave me the house. I have the papers." "Papers that hold no legal weight," I explained. "The house has been mine for 15 years. Grandpa Theodore left it to me, not to Mom and Dad, and certainly not to you." The silence that followed was heavy with realization. "You're lying," he finally whispered. But the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. "Check the county records if you don't believe me," I suggested. "Or you can meet me at Ms. Winter's office tomorrow at 10. 3 days later, Marcus stormed into the attorney's office like a hurricane. His tailored suit couldn't mask the fury in his eyes as he demanded explanations, threatened lawsuits, and accused me of manipulating our grandfather. Ms. Winters patiently allowed his tirade to burn itself out before silently sliding the irrefutable legal documentation across her desk. As Marcus read through the papers, the color drained from his face. For perhaps the first time in his charmed life, he was confronted with a reality he couldn't charm, bully, or buy his way out of. When he reached the final page confirming my ownership, he collapsed into the chair opposite me, the fight draining from him like air from a punctured tire. "I already told my colleagues," he muttered, staring at his hands. "I made plans to renovate and host corporate retreats. I leveraged my reputation on this." I felt no sympathy. "That sounds like your problem." Our parents arrived at the estate the following weekend. I was in the garden, pruning the heritage roses that had been my grandmother's pride. I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway, but continued my work until they approached. "How could you humiliate your brother like this?" Mom demanded, her voice tight with disapproval. I straightened up, garden shears still in hand. "How could you try to give away something that was never yours?" Dad stepped forward, his voice taking on the authoritative tone that had governed our childhood. "This is just a technicality, Eliza. The right thing to do would be to honor our wishes." "A technicality?" I echoed, disbelief coloring my words. "Marcus tried to take my home. You helped him. There's nothing technical about it." Mom softened her approach, placing her hand on my arm. "Sweetie, your brother is devastated. He had such plans. Couldn't you just let him have the East Wing at least? You don't need all this space." The realization hit me with perfect clarity. This was the plan all along, wasn't it? You never thought I deserved this house. You always intended for Marcus to have it. Their silence was my answer. "I've spent 20 years maintaining this property, preserving its history, making sure you both could live comfortably in your retirement." Meanwhile, Marcus visited twice a year and sent expensive Christmas gifts instead of helping when Dad had his stroke. I took a deep breath, feeling strangely calm. "You need to leave now, and when you come back, it will be as guests, not residents." Their expressions of shock barely registered as I turned back to my roses. The legal proceedings that followed were straightforward but painful. Marcus attempted to contest the will, claiming that our grandfather had been unduly influenced. The judge dismissed his claims almost immediately after reviewing the meticulous documentation Theodore had arranged. During the final hearing, Marcus made one last desperate move. He produced fabricated documents suggesting I had agreed to a property transfer years earlier. The judge's expression hardened as she examined the poorly forged papers. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, her voice cutting through the hushed courtroom, "are you aware that presenting falsified documents to this court constitutes fraud?" Marcus's carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. He stammered incoherently, looking to our parents for support, but they sat frozen in the gallery, the consequences of their favoritism finally becoming clear. The judge ruled definitively in my favor and referred the matter for potential criminal investigation. Outside the courthouse, my parents intercepted me, my mother's eyes brimming with tears. "Eliza, please," she pleaded. "Your brother could face serious charges. You can't let that happen." I regarded them both with a calmness that surprised even me. "I didn't create this situation. Marcus did this to himself when he tried to commit fraud. But where will we go? Dad asked, suddenly looking every one of his 80 years. That's for you to figure out, I replied. I've already had my attorney prepare formal eviction notices for both of you. You have 30 days. 3 months later, I stood on the Widow's Walk atop the Victorian, surveying the property that was now undisputedly mine. The autumn leaves had given way to the first dusting of Vermont snow, creating a pristine blanket over the grounds. My parents and Marcus had moved into a 2-bedroom condominium across town. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Marcus was struggling professionally since his fraud charges became public knowledge. My parents had reportedly begun to question their decades of preferential treatment toward him. As for me, I had begun the process of registering the house as a historical landmark. The eastern wing, which I had meticulously restored, would soon open for educational tours showcasing authentic Victorian craftsmanship. The house was quiet now. No more tension, no more walking on eggshells, no more thankless sacrifice. Just the peaceful creaking of century-old timber and the knowledge that my grandfather had seen my worth even when my parents couldn't. Some might expect remorse or second thoughts about my decisions, but I feel none. They gambled with my future and lost their own in the process. And this house, this magnificent, storied structure that had witnessed generations of our family, was always meant to be mine. If you enjoyed this story of family betrayal and justice served, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more dramatic tales of unexpected twists and rightful comeuppance.